Yesterday, Sergey Karjakin was down for the count against Daniil Dubov, but somehow managed his way to the Armageddon game by tying it to a piece and then winning the Armageddon game against Daniil Dubov, where Daniil Dubov just blown it up apart for himself and blundered a winning position. So this is the third match, the set 3 of the quarterfinal match between Sergey Karjakin and Daniil Dubov, and the winner will face the winner of the another set 3 match between Yu Yang and Daniil. So the question is, who will progress through? So Dubov is white in the first game, and he opens with 1d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, d5. This is all standard stuff. We all see this. Knight c3, bishop e7. This is the line which is somewhat very solid for black, as all the pieces are towards its own area. Bishop g5, and this system is played by Hikaru with black and had been quite successful, and he has already progressed through to the semis, and he will face Magnus. We will see. e3, h6, bishop f4. Bishop can come to h4 as well, but f4 isn't bad either. Castles g4, Dubov going for it on the king side, and if he had want to play safe, he could have played c5 and the position could have been closed on in the center of the board. But g4, he's going for it. Of course, not taking is because of rook here, and then bishop hits through. So now Karjakin closes the opportunity of c5, goes g5, so going for it on the king side. Good move. Pawn takes, knight takes, could have played bishop takes as well, that would have been much better, but knight takes isn't bad either. C takes, E takes, D takes c4, rook g1, good move, just occupying this open file, and would like to bring more pieces here on this g file, would have been ideal indeed. Knight d5 from Sergey. But he could have tried to defend this pawn by playing b5. It is attacked by the bishop, but he opts for exchanging more pieces here, possibly try to get rid of this bishop, but yeah, queen c2. If takes, then mate on h7, so cannot take the bishop. Bishop takes g5, bishop takes g5, and he could have simply played queen c7, but f6 isn't bad either. However, it creates this long-term weakness on e6, and since white pawn is on d4, e5 isn't easy to be playing. Bishop h6 can't be taken because of the pin, because of the absolute pin. Rook f7 defending this pawn. Bishop takes c4, recovering its pawn back. Good move. Knight 7 b6, attacking the bishop. Bishop tucks back, and what I believe that queen c7, reinstating this pin, or I should say instating this pin, so that knight takes d5 doesn't happen, could have been a good move, useful move. Knight takes, pawn takes, then knight d5, c4, knight b4 could have been really annoying for white. Maybe, who knows. f5. Now what this does is opens this line of the bishop attacking the queen, and this isn't comfortable. Let's see why. In this position, Dubov castled queen side. Let's see the move if he plays queen d2 in this position. But then knight recaptures, pawn takes, knight d5, and now this bishop g5 would have been really annoying since f6 pawn is pushed to f5. But here after f5, Dubov long castles, which gives black some chance to equalize, because after queen h4 suddenly it looks like black can hold himself in the position. Bishop g5, queen takes f2, queen d2, and here he could have played f4. f4 would have been a better move. Why it could have been a better move? Because after rook df1 it looks like queen can get trapped, but after queen e3 you exchange queens and you liquidate the position into a draw. And the queen trade would have been better for black in this position because of this good positioning of this knight. If you try to eliminate, then this knight comes here, good position. However, after queen d2, looking at the position of this bishop and try to develop this rook as well, he plays bishop d7, because now there is no queen e3 and suddenly this queen is running very low on squares. Rook df1, queen takes h2 is forced, otherwise queen would have been trapped, and rook h1 gives chance to double the rooks on this h file and create a battery on this h8 square, creating mate threats, and you will see how that turns out to be very crucial. Okay, now queen is hit, so you have to move the queen. Queen d6, rook h3, just making way for this rook, doubling on this h file, piling it on. If this bishop moves, we might see Alekine's gun on this file. Knight takes, rook fh1, and the attack on the black's king side is so strong that you can afford to give up your piece, your material. It doesn't matter, your attack is way too strong. Queen takes, now queen c6 check, king b1, and if black isn't careful enough, let's say if he plays a waiting move, rook ff8, well, this leads to mate very easily, because after rook h8 check, nothing can be defended. King f7 is a forced checkmate like this. There we go, queen e7. So this is a position you have to be very careful indeed. Rook f6 loses this material. Excuse me. So you have to take the rook in the corner, otherwise mate would have been unstoppable. It would have been a sad situation. Rook takes, bishop c6 attacking the rook. Rook comes to h4, bishop e4 check, king a1, and it looks like rook c8 threatens mate, but he forgot something. Queen h2 is even a stronger mating threat by white, because you cannot play this, the bishop covers this square. And on this position, after queen h2, Karjakin resigned game 1, 1-0 to Dubov after game 1. So game number 2, there we go. Karjakin is white, Dubov is black. Karjakin opens with e4, e5, knight f3. We see the Lindores defense, and Dubov has been advocating this too much. I don't know why he was doing that. d4 takes, and then queen takes. So now why this is somewhat positionally incorrect, because you're placing the queen instead of your minor pieces right at the move 4, and once knight c6 attacking the queen has to move. Bishop b5, okay, developing like this, so this is pinned and the knight cannot take the queen, but still queen in the center of the board isn't a preferable choice. Bishop d7, queen d3, as we said, knight b4, opening this and also opening the attack. So you have to take the bishop, this is forced. Queen takes, and now queen b3 defending the c2 pawn. d5, a3 kicking that knight away, but d takes e4 attacking the knight, and this was taken, and he grabs one more pawn. So rook e1 check, bishop blocks, rook a5, king f8. So far so good, everything is good. Knight d2, knight f6, knight c4, placing knight into a good square. And also you have to remember this king cannot castle, so which means that this rooks won't connect for a specific time. Well, he could have played knight g4 in this position, but I don't mind what did he play. What he played: bishop d6, bishop g5, and queen f3 also would have been better, just to attack the pawn, create more weaknesses in the black's position. a7 would also be vulnerable because queen here would have attacked the rook, so rook had to move or either to defend by queen c8. And if you play queen c8, then you just take, and then rook takes a7 could have been possible. Who knows? So rook e8. First rook takes e8 check, knight takes e8, and then taking on a7. And if black wants a draw in this position, he could simply play bishop takes h2. It looks like it's winning a piece, but actually isn't. After king takes h2, g1 promotion queen, king takes g1, queen d1 check forces perpetual. Let's see how. If he plays king g2, queen d5 check, dilutes the position into repetition. King f1, if queen f3, then queen takes g5, and black is a pawn up with a safe king. Playable position for black. So after queen d5, then king f1 draws the game. By repetition, again queen d1, queen d5, so on. If he wants to. But Dubov wanted to continue the game and he plays h6. Okay, attacking the bishop. Bishop has to go back to d2, and now this is a very critical moment in the game. Dubov could have simply played b5 here, not only defending the pawn with the from the attack, but also attacking this knight and exchanging everything here. And the position, you can say, far from very much equal. Not far from equal. However, in this position, after bishop d2, Dubov plays queen b5, defending pawn like this, but suddenly this brings white into the attack. Rook a8, pinning this knight. Not only that, this is also coming. Okay, not now for the moment because of queen f1, bad luck, but king g8, queen d3, preparing b3, bishop f8, and now suddenly white is looking, tremendous in this position. It could have been playable. Bishop c3, f6, but he could have played knight f6 here, and b3, and I can suddenly back white with my eyes closed, because this is completely winning. You one-to-one comparison. What is this bishop doing compared to this? What is this rook doing compared to this? This rook is doing absolutely nothing. This bishop is doing absolutely nothing. This knight is doing absolutely nothing compared to this knight. You can say that these pieces are defending the king, but they are way too passive. What is this pawn doing at the second rank? Just take it with the king. It in fact strongholds the white king compared to this black king. And if queen f1 is stopped, then there is absolutely no threat by the black pieces, and there are some like spectators. Queen h5, just one last attempt, trying to be desperate. Queen e4 wasn't accurate. Certainly would have taken the pawn. That would have been better. Knight d6, knight takes, c takes. Again, white is already way better in this position. If he wants to, he can simply play this also, he can play this also, and everything is holdable. Rook b8, still nothing fussy here. White is totally in charge. d5 attacks the queen, but queen e6 check. King h7, rook takes b7. Queen d1 check, king picks this pawn up. Queen takes c2, queen takes f6. Karjakin is winning in this position. d4, queen takes d4, queen g6 check. Now this is a very critical moment, and you don't have too many choices here, and you have two good choices, you have two bad choices, and one terrible choice. Terrible choice is to bring the queen in the middle, but bad choices are king f1 or king h1. Good choices, king h3, king f3. But here, unfortunately, Karjakin chose the bad choice, king f1. Oh my lord. And this loses the game immediately. There's no point continuing the game. Karjakin did. Queen e6 check, picks the rook. Oh my lord. And he went down the bitter end. Again, man-to-man comparison. Queen takes b7. He was trying to make something of this poor rook's position. Just man-to-man. This bishop is better than this one. No rook is better than this rook. This queen is better than this queen. Although equal terms, not better. But these two passed pawns can create some counterplay. Bishop e5, bishop e7. So queen c4 check, king f8, try to keep this rook here only, don't want to allow any move that brings this rook to life, but it is all in vain. Bishop d4, h5, now this rook can come out, and there's absolutely no stopping. b6, try to create some counterplay, but rook comes out, and now this rook is alive, and it is now officially a rook down position for black, but he continues. Again, hoping for the best and preparing for the worst, as they say. Queen h1 check, king e2 is the only move. Rook e6 check, bishop e3, queen e4, threatening to exchange queens. Karjakin refuses, queen c2 check, king e1, and rook takes e3 is a finishing move, after which Karjakin resigns. 2-0 for Dubov. So why did he resign? Pawn takes loses simply because of bishop h4 check, king f1, queen f2 checkmate. And after rook takes e3, if we play king f1, there comes a nice good sequence. Queen b1 check, king g2, queen e4 check, king g1, rook e1 check, and queen f1 and queen g4 and mate on the next turn. Queen g4, king h1, and then rook takes f1 mate. So after rook takes e3, Karjakin resigns game number 2. So we go to game number 3 now, and this time Dubov is white and Karjakin is black. Karjakin has to win this to at least keep the match alive. It is quite evident if Dubov loses in the last two games, the game goes into an Armageddon. He doesn't want to afford, he cannot afford an Armageddon. He lost last time in the Armageddon to Karjakin, but remember, in the first set, he whitewashed Karjakin 3-0. So the question is, can he repeat the same? Dubov is white, Karjakin is black. d4 by Dubov, knight f6, c4, d6, knight c3, bishop f5. So he's basically trying to prepare the king's Indian. You can see we might see g6 might be played, and some other stuffs also. f3, so preparing e4, very sharp. And now the move that I would have liked would have been to play e5, just to break off the center. d5, then knight b d7, probably c5, and so on. But he plays bishop d7, Sergey, and I don't like this because you moved this bishop here and you are moving this bishop again, and that too on the same line. If you had to play this, then you could have played bishop g6. The question is, why to move same piece twice in the opening, and especially on the same line from where it came? It was quite dubious. I don't like it. e4, e5, knight g e2, bishop e7, preparing to castle, short castle, bishop e3, c5, d5, closing the center, knight h5, possibly trying to prepare knight f4, queen d2, h6, want to give his king some room, preparing in advance, and also possibly try to prevent bishop g5 if it happens, if it can happen. If queen moves away like this or this, then bishop g5 could be a move to dislike. Long castle by Dubov, bishop g5, g3, bishop takes, queen takes, a6. So Karjakin is trying to attack on the queen side by pushing b5 and then trying to exchange, or to play b5 and then b4 to kick this knight away, then starting to push these pawns. This bishop is controlling this a4 square, and there are only two pawns here, and this is advanced, so not an ideal position for white to be in. Nevertheless, f4, knight f6, h3, queen e7. So Dubov is preparing to push his king side pawns, but slowly is doing that. Possibly tries to make sure that every piece is sitting where it should be, and only then start to push his king side pawns for the attack. Knight g1, preparing knight f3, b5, f takes e5, and queen takes e5 would also have been better, but knight f3 kicks the queen away and the queen goes back, possibly losing some time in that, but that would establish that d6 pawn is there. But the problem is then white can break with e5 and then initiate d6, who knows. So d takes e5, d6, now pushing with the passed pawn. This is defended by the rook, and this pawn attacking the queen, very dangerous. Passed pawns are something like thorn in a flesh, so you can say. Queen takes e5, castles, knight f3, knight c6, just developing the queen's knight. Queen comes back to e3. As you can see, black is 2 pawns up in the position, and white is 2 pawns up in the position, and if this doesn't happen, then c5 looks the end for black. B takes c, knight d5, just creating more and more. Knight cannot take because of this fork. So again, there is no time to immune this. Also knight c7, fork is also threatened. Rook a c8, and after knight c7 the rook gives itself because this queen was running very short on squares. The queen cannot come here, covered by the pawn, covered by this rook and this bishop. Pawn takes care of this, the knight was taking care of this, so the rook had to take it. D takes c7, rook c8, and if white wanted to retain this pawn, he could have basically played queen b6, and this pawn is already nuisance for black in this position, and white is totally on the charge. Absolutely nothing that black can do. He's already looking very helpless. But king b1 was a bit casual, just missing a chance, because rook takes c7, taking that pawn, and suddenly black can breathe better now. But already it's far from over. White is totally on the charge, as I said, irrespective of whether this pawn is here or not. Rook h2, c3, b takes c3, knight a5, and now what does this rook do? It swipes across to the b2 square and protects this white king right in front of it. Very good move by Dubov. Bishop b5, knight d2, bishop takes, rook takes, knight c4, Knights are exchanged. Rook takes. Queen d3. Rook a4. Queen c2. Queen c4 attacking the rook, but it isn't bothered by it. Rook e1. Knight takes e4. The knight is defended twice, so no point in taking this. King a1. Just getting out of this nonsense, nuisance thing, not nonsense. Is getting out of this. Knight takes c3. g6. Queen b3, offering trade of queens. Black refuses. Queen b8 check. King h7 recovers the pawn back. So white is looking like a pawn down, but he has the exchange. And here Karjakin made a blunder. He could have simply played queen c4 here, just to keep defending this knight here. It isn't doing a bad job. He's doing better job. And queen c4 would have been better. And if you think that rook b8 might be a good choice, but then queen takes c3 would offer the trade of queens. Rook b8 would have been threatening this mate, but then queen takes c3 comes with check, and you could have traded the queens. And who knows, that position would have been, that could have been another option. But knight takes c3, suddenly it falls into a trap, because after rook c2, this knight is looking really under pressure, and this pin, the knight cannot move. And after rook a3, queen e7, black resigns. Black cannot do two things at a time. First, to defend the pawn on h7 and also defend its rook. And this isn't an easy job for black to defend the rook. If you play queen a4, then queen f7 check crashes through, and would be, you have to give some material. And this knight, look at this knight, hopeless piece here. So here Karjakin resigned. So it's 3-0. Dubov qualifies for the semis, and Ding Liren, who battled it out against Yu Yangi, he was a game down after round 2, but suddenly recovered it very well in game 3 and won it, and forced an Armageddon, and he drew that Armageddon game into a worse position. So congrats to Ding Liren as well. So the semi-final set 1 of the Lindores Abbey Rapid Challenge commences tomorrow, and we'll see Hikaru Nakamura taking on Magnus Carlsen in set 1, and Daniil Dubov will take on Ding Liren in the second semi-final in set 1. I hope you like my analysis. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. Cheers. Bye.